All right, finally dragged Dave here. So Dave, for those of you, for anyone listening, Dave and I have known each other now for, 25 years or so, something like that.
Something like that,
right? And it started because Dave was he would watch me play my high-end hockey skills when I joined the men's team that Tom was organizing. I don't know if Tom was organizing it or someone else was organizing it. I forget. But I got lured onto that team, and I was a very high-end hockey player in my early 20s. You remember that?
I do remember that.
That's right when I was learning to skate, pretty much. So stopping involved smashing into the boards. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Or smashing into someone else.
Taking out somebody else.
Yeah. But I wasn't trying to take them out. I just couldn't stop. So I just smashed into them, and I got a lot of penalties early on because of that. But anyways, we went down and... Eddie, so Dave's brother, was here with his business partner a couple months ago, with Pine Glen Homes. We were talking about some of the developments they're doing, and it came to mind to talk to you. We get a ton of questions about contractors and dealing with contractors and all that type of stuff. So you came to mind, and we were talking when Eddie was here. We were talking about some of the stuff, the stories that we had early on in the Hamilton area with some of the properties we talked about when we had to lift up the back of the car.
Yes,
remember lifting up the car and moving it.
Yeah.
And the lady's face when she came back from the school, we're like, "How the heck is my car on the sidewalk?" So it's been a journey, man. It's been a journey.
It's been a lot of fun.
And then you've always been into, because even from then, like when we started, so then we ended up buying that property together, we renovated it, like gutted it. It was gross. Remember, like smoke caked windows and
all nicotine tarred up windows, opaque windows.
Yeah, and nothing in the bay. No, not even ventilation in the bay. It was just cinder block, right?
One big rat in the middle of the floor.
That's right. There was the dead, rotting rat. Yeah, that's right. When we bought it.
That's why we bought that.
Oh, man. But even at that time, so, I was very willing to do work, manual labor, no problem. I didn't have the knowledge, for some of the, the electrical, some of the framing stuff but you had already gone down that path. You had woodworking equipment at your house, even at that time. So you were early 20s, and you had I remember your huge toolboxes. You had all the machinery you needed, for everything, for creating cabinets and all this stuff.
Yeah, I'd had a wood shop basically in the basement of the home, and working on different smaller projects. How'd
you get it? What? You just liked that stuff from the beginning?
I was basically a wood nerd. I just started reading up and
try not to tap that thing.
Oh, sorry. I was a wood nerd. I was just reading up on woodworking and loved working with my hands and building things.
Really?
Yeah, from a young age.
Yeah, it was good because I learned a ton from you going through that process, and you were bringing your uncle and your dad would help and all this stuff, and then my dad joined in with some of the stuff. But it was going through that I was like, oh, this is great. I was learning a ton as you were. Actually, I guess at that time we were both learning a ton as we went.
We definitely were.
And then it was some of the lessons though, man. Do you remember we would go to Home Depot? So Dave would, if anyone remembers the old 240 SXs with the hatchback, Dave used to drive one of those old ones. We treated it like a pickup truck. We would put drywall in there, studs, insulation.
Boxes.
And that flipping, the hatchback would just smash down and hold everything in place. We'd hop back onto the highway. We're like, I think it's going to last. And we would drive back to the place. Do you remember that?
I do remember that. That was a pickup truck. It was fantastic.
And then we would go, and the biggest lesson I took from that property to this day is we did all that work and we put in the absolute cheapest material because it was a student property. So we're like, we don't want to spend a lot of money on material.
Yes.
We put the cheapest material we could find in every room.
We did. Yeah. We thought that was the best solution at the time.
The light fixtures were like $9.99.
Yeah, they were. They were.
And then we look back because shortly after we had problems with some of the materials. And we're like, we're so stupid. Why didn't we just spend a little bit more on material? We were doing all the labor anyways. Spend a little bit more on materials, and it's done right the first time, and we don't have to think about it anymore.
Right.
Oh man. Okay. So, anyways, that joined. Now you're Toronto Custom Concepts.
Correct.
You've moved on to this. Now you're this professional contractor guy. How'd that go? Because you were in corporate world. So how did it start going into the contracting world?
Yeah. While in corporate, I actually started Halton General Contractors and started working.
Oh, that's right.
Part-time in renovations with my brother. And we started renovating weekends and so on. And then it came to a point where we realized, you know what, it's getting pretty busy. Either we leave our full-time jobs and give this a full-time go, or not, and stay doing what we're doing. And we all decided that we were just making too much money working full-time in corporate, and decided to drop the company and continue our day-to-day 9 to 5.
Really? That's what happened. I don't remember that.
Yeah. Yeah. And we shelved that company, and we were working our regular jobs. And until I think it was 3 or 4 years later, my brother decided to go off on his own and start his company and leave his full-time work. And I decided to do that as well 3 or 4 years after that.
Yeah, because he was a teacher at that time, right?
He was a teacher, and I was a finance guy. So
some people must have looked at him like he was crazy to leave teaching to go into like general. Were they planning to build homes from the get-go? It was just contracting, right?
It was just basic contracting.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, he was knocking on doors in apartment buildings and service work and all that.
But then same as you, because you were working at Manulife at that time. So some people looked at you, you're like, you're leaving a company like Manulife to go do contracting? Because in
closets.
Oh, it was a closet?
Yeah.
Oh, it was custom closets. That's how it started, right?
Yeah. So I left the corporate downtown, Manulife, to do custom closets.
But some people must have looked at you like your parent, like what's your parent, like weren't some people like you're at Manulife? You know, because in our society, which I think is like not a good thing, but so many people look at that as like, wow, that's so good. And being a contractor or you do closets, immediately it's like you're just like this lower level.
Yeah,
it blows my mind, but it's just that's how things are, unfortunately.
That's the perspective many people have, and yeah. So I went from wearing a suit every day downtown to, wearing track pants and trying to sell you a $2,000 closet organizer.
Yeah,
and decided to leave a 6-figure job for that glorious life.
Were you you probably weren't happier at first. Were you happier doing it? Like was it not looking back from today? Like at what point did you have to look back? How long did it take from when you left to look back and be like, this was a good move?
Probably a year, or a little over a year.
And until then, it was just a pain in the bucket.
It was a struggle. It was hard. No one knew who I was. Didn't have any dollars put marketing to it. It was difficult to put yourself on the map and get someone to call you to buy a closet. And the whole reason I chose to get into that, because I did enjoy working with wood and millwork. However, closets and closet organizers were a quick and easy 1-day in and out install, move on to the next one, capable of doing by yourself or with a helper. That's why I kind of decided to at least get my foot in the door with that. And that lasted a good 9 or 10 months until some clients started asking, hey, do you know someone that can do a bathroom, and someone can do flooring, and someone can do painting, and so on? Did it evolve into full-blown or contracting in the second year? So actually after about 9 months. But I can say in closets in the first year, we did just over $250,000 in sales just in closets, which seems to be pretty excessive in a first-year business on closets.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a decent number for first-year business on anything.
On anything.
Yeah, on closets specifically alone.
Right.
So that's how the transition was made. And then you were just kind of working with these, but then now like it feels like, I mean, I know you do all sorts of jobs, but a lot of your jobs are very custom, very high. Like it feels like you're dealing with a lot of high-end custom properties and renovations that you're doing. Because I forget, one time I was at your shop and there was a toilet there that was like what was some toilet that was tens of thousands of dollars, $15,000, whatever it was.
Yeah, we've had $15,000, $18,000 toilets. And
I think it was 18. I want to say 18, but if it's 50, I was like, what the heck does this thing do for $18,000? I don't want to say it live, but I'm like, it better do a lot for me if I'm sitting on that toilet for $18,000.
It's got a lot of bells and whistles for sure.
But what are bells and so this is what I mean. So you transitioned into this high end stuff. How did that was that planned, or just kind of came to fruition that it's the type of work that you did kind of suited that?
Right. It was not intentional. What the intent was to use high quality product and provide high quality service. And that morphed into a higher end client, as we would do a nicer finishes on a bathroom and so on. That attracted the attention for, a magazine shot, or something online on the website, and that attracted a certain clientele. And that kind of morphed or evolved into a higher end market and that type of clientele. So it wasn't the intention to go after the high-end market. It was merely driven from the motivation of using quality product and quality pieces and all that, and quality people for that matter, and craftsmanship. And that kind of evolved into that very quickly. And then we've caught the eye of magazines, and we've caught the eye of designers and so on, and started to work many of these designers over time, and just kind of evolved to where we are today.
And so that's how that industry works with designers. So if designers get a client, the client looks at them for a sometimes they'll come to you with a
there's different avenues, I guess. Sometimes the client gets a designer first. Sometimes the client gets the contractor first, and we bring in a designer. And sometimes there is no designer outright. And we kind of help with the design alongside with the client. And sometimes the client wants zero involvement and just wants someone else to take care of everything as well. So there's just different perspectives based on different clientele.
Got it. So to give everyone some context, Dave did, when we did our main floor in our house, which we moved out for it because we completely gutted it and ripped down all the walls, and new beams and stuff had to be put in. And then for this to happen, I think you called me. We were doing one of our Your Life Your Terms events that weekend, and you had called me a few days before, so it was the perfect wrong timing. And you're like, look, I can do this job. I can fit it in. If you want it done by Christmas, we got to do it now. We got to start next week, and yes. I can squeeze it in. And I'm like, oh man, okay, we can make it happen. So I finished this event. So all day busy at the event. The next day, packing up, I guess, everything and moving it into different parts of the house to get it ready for this reno. And then at that time, we didn't even really have a plan. So you came in, you sent your guys in, and the demo started. And then after the demo, I remember you came to the house after I met you there. You're like, okay, so like, what are we going to, like, where, what are we doing? Where's the walls going to go? And I'm like, I don't know. What do you think? And then we just started measuring it out from there. But at that point, it was too late to turn back. So it was literally like burn the bridges, burn the ships, and then we're stuck. We're like, all right, we got to fix this.
Ask questions later. Yeah. Which is not typical of how we work.
No, not typical. And I was willing to take on, you're like, look, man, it's up to you if you want to do this. I'm like, all right, let's go. But I don't think you would, I don't imagine you would pull that with someone you didn't know, because that would be a disaster.
No, we definitely wouldn't. There's a lot of planning involved.
Yeah.
Especially when we do higher end or complicated work or complicated product that might take 6, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks to bring in from the other side of the world. There's a lot of research and analyzing on a $15,000 toilet. Water pressures, water pipe sizing.
What's a $15,000 toilet do? You got to tell me. What does it do?
It cleans itself. It's got hot water. It's got a remote. It plays music. The seat opens.
It plays music?
Yeah.
No, come on.
Oh, yeah. It comes with an iPad attachment on the wall.
It cleans itself too?
It cleans itself. It's got the technology to do that.
It must wash and dry you.
There are features like that acts like a bidet and so on. So, yeah, it's got a headlight.
A headlight for what?
So you can see at night, when you walk in. You don't have to turn the lights on and bright. So there's...
Oh my God. I had no idea. Until you told me that when I was there, I had no idea something like that existed. Yeah. Like I know there's excessive extravagance, but I was like, what? On a toilet? Like there's just some things I just can't wrap my head around. And that went into a house in what area of Toronto?
Well, we've done a few of those. So
you've done a few $15,000 toilets.
Yeah. They've gone into a few in Toronto condo, Oakville, home.
Wow.
Yeah.
There's multiple people buying $15,000.
There are multiple buying $10,000 toilets. Not uncommon at all.
This is mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
This is like when I went downtown to buy. I am not a big designer person at all, but I went downtown to buy my wife one of these designer bags, right? So I go into, I forget, it was for one of our anniversaries. So I go into the Chanel store. I'm like, okay, I'm the only sucker looking for this bag. I'm going in, I finally convinced myself, like, she's always wanted one of these things. I'll go get her this thing. So I walk in, I'm like, yeah, I want one of these bags. I forget what it was called now at this point. And they're like, oh, sir, no, sorry. There's you got months waiting list. Yeah. I'm like, what are you talking about, waiting list? They're like, oh yeah, like this is like, yeah, maybe next year sometime. Like, what? I thought it was like, I had convinced myself like I was the only sucker going down there to buy that bag that day.
There's a lineup.
Yeah. It blew my mind, man. Like I just can't believe some of this stuff. So, but yeah, the $15,000 toilet. I mean, that actually seems like a better use of the funds than the bag. But that's my own. She would definitely disagree. So I'm not going to say that. But so Dave, look, we get a lot of questions about people asking to work with contractors. So I need you to tell me something here. I guess I'm looking for some guidance for people that are like, what the heck? How does this work? Because there's a number of people. There's someone that I talked to just the other day. They started a project. Contractor got through it. Sounds like about 80%. He's like, I ended up getting busy. Okay, you keep the final little payment, which is not going to cover the rest of the work. He's gone. He's disappeared. He's like, yeah, you just find someone else. I heard these stories, especially when stuff was busy, time and time again. How does someone, like, what is something they got to look for? Like, I guess there's different ways. Like, there's the guys that you call, and they're like they do it like they're like the one-man shop.
There are.
So that's like a whole different level than working with like a kind of a company like yourself,
or a
right?
general contractor that has a team and so on. So yeah, there is the guy in the truck, the individual that wears many hats. One day he's the plumber, the next day he's the carpenter, the third day he's the electrician. Are they going to be less expensive than a general contractor? Absolutely. Are you going to get the same quality of work and service? Probably not. That's a decision that people make based on quality, based on budgets, and so on. Is it going to take longer? Perhaps. Are they more organized, less organized? Do they have schedules and so on? There's a big variation between hiring a guy versus a company. Okay,
but then there's some companies that are like, so then there's two different types really, right? Because there's some companies that have like more guys in-house that do stuff, the majority of the stuff in-house.
Yep.
And then there's more like a general contracting side. Can you kind of give those?
Sure. Either way, they're both general contractors. With us, we have on staff carpenters. That are on our payroll, that are employees and do carpentry work. Whereas,
why carpenters and not like, why don't you have on staff electricians and plumbers? Like, what's the decision making there? I have my own opinion of why that might be. I just don't know if it's accurate or not.
With what we call the professional trades, which I'm referring to is the electricians, HVAC, gas fitters, and plumbers. There's different licenses required for those trades. For one, this is why we don't have a plumber or an electrician on staff. Two, we'd have to feed them 40 hours of work, 52 weeks a year, regularly, and we don't have that abundance of work
for just plumbing or something.
For just plumbing or just electrical. So
you would need the company needs a different license to be a plumbing. Like, can you just be a company that employs plumbers?
I guess you could be. I'm not 100% sure. Okay. But someone signing off on that plumbing, you need a plumbing license to be a plumber.
Yeah. So then you got to make sure as a company that you're giving your seal of approval, and if you don't have your license, then they understand it. Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha.
Right.
Okay. And then so then you have carpenters on staff, and then are there other guys, like any other kind of setup where? Is there some companies that kind of have everyone on staff?
There might be, and I wouldn't be even familiar with a competitor that might have everyone on staff. It's usually not the case.
Okay.
General contractors usually sub-trade out all of the trades or most of the trades.
Okay. And talk to everyone like this is the first time hearing it, because there's a lot of people when they deal with this, they haven't really gone through, like there's a lot of investors that there's this growing demand to be adding units to properties and to be doing these other things. And there's a lot of opportunity there for investors, but they haven't really gone down this path of working with contractors before. So when you're saying you're subbing stuff out, it means someone hires you, you're handling the job, you're taking on the whole responsibility, and then you're hiring the other trades to handle everything, even if they don't work for you.
Correct. And we have a relationship with all of these other trades. So for example, we have somewhere in the ballpark of 140, 150 trades under our belts, whom we use regularly for whatever their specific disciplines are. Masons, brick masons, roofers, etc. We don't use them every single day, but we have strong relationships, and we've weeded out over the years the good ones versus the mediocre ones versus the poor ones. And we're always, quote unquote, trying to find better people and upgrade and so on as we get more work and more jobs and get busier. So we've done all of that legwork. We've gone through the experiences of working with the mediocre trade versus the better quality trade, the reliable trade, the one who cares, and so on. So we have that quote unquote family of trades. So when a client hires us, they're hiring that whole family of trades, and we basically manage that entire project from scheduling to the quality of workmanship and the output on that project that the client doesn't need to worry about, versus the client being their own GC, which is another option, and where they call and find a plumber, an electrician, a carpenter, a tile person, and so on and so forth. When they do that, they're getting different price points. They may not be sure what the price point should be at, where we know where the price point should be. The deal that we have with our trades, if we give our painter, if we're responsible for our painter's, 40% of his annual salary, he will give us price breaks in doing so, and we pass that along to our clients. Obviously, we need to make money, and there's
Sure.
some points on top of that to manage that. But at the end of the day, I kind of equate it to, if the painter's costing a client directly, if they're hiring their own painter at $10 per unit, we might be charged $8 a unit for that painter, and we charge the client $10, including our service. So for the same amount, the responsibility is ours. It's professionally managed versus a client who may not be familiar with what they need to look for or critique, what the deficiencies they might find or not find, where we take all of that and keep things on schedule. Often when a homeowner manages a project themselves, they're stuck in the middle between one trade blaming the next trade, and they end up getting charged more and ends up taking longer, because even the management on the schedule piece is often slower and elongated because the client may not understand what goes next, what's the lead time for something, and so on. So there's strong advantages, not to be biased, but strong advantages, in my opinion, to hire a professional to do that work.
Real estate investing isn't always easy, but it can be relatively simple. And that's where the Rockstar Inner Circle comes in. Look, there's a lot of real estate investing information out there these days. That's why it's so important to pick your sources wisely. And even though investing isn't always going to be the easiest process, it does not have to be super complicated. That's where tried, tested, and proven strategies like the ones that Rockstar members use come into play. Everything shared in the Inner Circle is built from firsthand, on the streets experience in the current market. It's all up to date, things that people are actually implementing today. In fact, the ongoing courses are delivered live, so they're always up to date with the absolute latest real life experiences. As a Rockstar member, get ongoing access to over 20 different systems and programs covering things like which properties investors like and why, our private rental system, what opportunities the investors are scooping up in student housing currently, the legal side of investing, why or how to use corporations as an investor, a mortgage class with the absolute latest options and programs to build your portfolio as an investor, because they're different than a regular home buyer. And there's a whole ton more in all those different classes. Of course, to implement all these strategies, members get access to unlimited private one-on-one coaching with an actual human experienced investor, not an AI chatbot, not ChatGPT or anything like that. It goes beyond training classes in real estate. It's a community for people looking to take control of their own finances, to give themselves options and allow them to live life on their terms. With ongoing live and virtual opportunities to connect, it's built for investors by investors. You can see everything members get at rockstarinnercircle.com/member. It's rockstarinnercircle.com/member. Now back to the show. Yeah, but you hear all the stories about things going long anyways, whether they're hiring someone or not. So, I mean, sometimes it feels like maybe and I realize there's a lot of work in coordinating the trades, and they might not come out because they'll get busy somewhere else, and that's a whole other issue. But I mean, people run into these challenges where I don't know if it's a bad general contractor. I don't know if it's, them being a pain in the butt and unrealistic expectations, because there's a little bit of truth to kind of both sides a little bit, I'm sure. But where does that come into play? And like, how does someone know what the heck they're getting themselves into?
That to me, I would answer that with the client is ultimately responsible, in my opinion, to do their own due diligence.
How do you do it?
And to do that is you interview 3 contractors, and how do you pick those 3 versus the 50 that you might find online? Well, you start to do some online research and start to find out, look up reviews,
Where is there contractor sites? Like I know there's like trusted reviews and things like that, like Homestars.
Yeah, there's house.com. These are all platforms that contractors advertise on.
So house.com has reviews of contractors?
House.com does. So if a paying contractor to House is on that platform, they will typically have reviews from clients on past work.
Okay. What other ones?
Trustedpros.com is another one. Homestars is another one. Those are kind of your biggest ones that you'll find online. If you were just to plainly Google, contractor in Oakville or in Toronto or wherever the case is, sure, you're going to get a whole ton.
And do Google reviews come into play in the contracting world, or not as much as more of those sites?
Yeah, Google reviews come into play as well. It depends. Just the ranking of those other sites, they may rank higher than a company website on Google themselves, unless that company has a very strong SEO and is on page 1, page 2 of Google and comes up all the time.
Got it. Which most
contractors can't afford that, don't know about it, and don't have that.
So you go to those sites, you find some well-reviewed ones and I guess they need a certain number. Like you don't want someone that's got 2 reviews probably, or you might. I don't know.
I mean, 2 reviews to me is not a big enough sample size.
Yeah.
You probably want a much larger sample size. You want to read those reviews. You want to see what clients have said to people. You want to see photos. You want to see their websites.
So you called them in. So you called them in that when you said photos. And that's what I'm curious. What kind of stuff are you asking for from these guys? Like when they're there. So so I go on Trusted Reviews or Trusted Pros or whatever. I'm like, okay, these few guys look good.
Yeah. So what a client should be asking is, on top of seeing the reviews, on top of seeing some pictures of the workmanship, make sure those pictures are legitimate. It's very difficult to do that because a lot of contractors buy pictures. We've had other contractors steal our photos and claim our work is theirs. We've caught them. We have.
We've seen that here too. Some people have stolen some projects from here and claimed
it's theirs. So we've come across that. But a client should be asking, number one, does the contractor carry WSIB? And they should be carrying WSIB. It's a legal requirement back from January 2013, I believe. Another optional insurance is called Commercial General Liability Insurance, CGL, for at least $2 million. That's a requirement when us as a contractor work on a high rise or commercial areas. But I also feel that the homeowner should be asking for that as well. And that covers property damages and so on. So even though they're working on an area, if they go and make damages to the hardwood floor in another area or somewhere, there's an insurance that covers that. So those 2 things I think they should be asking for sure. Other things they should be asking is actual live reviews. They should be asking for references to try to call a few clients. Perhaps they should be asking for a site visit on an existing job or a finished job.
I guess a certain, like, is there a size of job? Like if someone's doing a smaller, like 1 room or something, like their laundry room, are they really going to be going to visit someone's house?
They probably won't be at all. I know in our case, we have an office and showroom. We have a place that a client can come see our work, where a smaller contractor may not have that. And that's
is there an element, like, do some people feel uncomfortable with this, you think? Because it feels like there's an element of distrust to the contractor, so they're trying to probe them. And is it potentially, like, does it take some of them off and be like, what the hell, but I guess is that maybe I'm answering my own question, because maybe that's a warning sign.
That is a warning sign. So if a contractor feels that they're backed into a corner or feel they're getting too many questions by a concerned client or an interviewing client, and they get upset with that to me is a red flag right off the hop. I have no problem being patient and answering any questions a client may have who's vetting us. It's straightforward. If they're spending a lot of money, sure, they should investigate. They don't know who this contractor is and what they're capable of, and are they going to ask for a $40,000 deposit and not show up? So that's another way of a client vetting through a contractor. I would also further ask for a contract and a sample contract and see what that paperwork is about and sample estimates.
You can ask for sample estimates.
Sample estimate or a sample contract.
Why wouldn't you just ask for your own estimate?
No, it's our estimate. We just take off the personal information and so on.
No, I know. What I mean is like if I'm talking to you for the job, wouldn't I be just asking you for the estimate when I'm talking to you?
You would be. So, there's a quick and what we call a quick and dirty verbal estimate where, hey, Dave, I'm doing a kitchen. My kitchen's 200 square feet. I've got 20 linear feet with a 4x6 island. What's this going to cost me?
Like, give me a ballpark.
Give me a ballpark number versus a full-blown detailed written estimate, which is what we typically do in detail once we do a site visit and so on. So
then if you're in the ballpark figure, so you can do that. If it's like, okay, that kind of makes sense to me, and then I can ask about you further to see if it makes sense for you to then, because then I'm respecting your time and mine, right? To see if it makes sense to go for. I can ask for this other stuff to make sense to go further down the line and get an actual detail estimate.
That's right, because we don't want to waste our time. We also don't want to waste their time. If we're not the right fit for that particular client, we like to determine that somewhere in a phone call.
Do a lot of people do that?
Probably not. I don't. A lot of contractors, a lot of homeowners. I'm not sure if other contractors do that, but we actually, ironically, vet our clients or our leads on the phone as well. Are we going to be a right fit and so on too? So when someone is calling for our company to do some work, they're not calling for the cheapest price. If it's just price only, if it's value for what you get for the price, that's now a determination. If it's a complicated job or the workmanship, then that's what they're after. And that's our clientele. So I can't speak to everyone, but definitely not the cheapest if they're looking for the cheapest.
Okay. So let's circle back to a second because you mentioned cost before. And I just wanted to kind of ask you, because with the general contractor, you said, well, you might get some special pricing and like $8 an hour for the painter in the example. And, if they charge 10, well, you charge 10 and your services are included. But that probably, like for most general contractors that are using all sub-trades, that's not going to make up the majority of the cost. Like there's got to be a premium put on it. And here's where I'm coming from. So when we did this office, it was someone that we knew from it was one of Tom's friends from high school that has a company with specializing in commercial properties, right? So we went to him, and they do a bunch of the restaurants around here, H&M's, Zara's, clothing stores, all this stuff. And the way they did their process, which I thought was quite interesting, is they went out, they took all our drawings and everything. They went out and they got quotes from their trades, similar to what you're talking about, and then they sat down with us. They're like, okay, guys, here's the way this works. So here's your drywall estimates.
Right.
Here's the 3 costs we get. This one might be a little bit lower, but our experience has been best. Almost the exact same thing you're talking about. Our experience has been the best with these guys. They're in the middle of the road, a little bit higher. It's up to you. We can go with the lower ones, but we would probably advise these guys. We're like, okay, we'll go with these guys. Plumbing. I'm just throwing numbers out or examples. But plumbing's like there was a big gap, and they're like, you know what? These guys always come expensive. These lower guys are awesome. Let's just take we would recommend going with the lowest price guys. Some guys they recommend more, whatever, right?
Right.
And then they're like, okay. And then we have our guy. We have a full-time guy on staff that's going to manage this project. So he's going to be here all day, every day. So here's his cost. This is his salary cost.
Right.
And then they're just like, and here's our markup, and not whatever their markup, their profit. It was like as a line item. It was like, here's how much we're making. And I was like, oh man, that was like a very transparent process. Yep. And for me, I kind of liked it. And even though I knew by using them, we were paying more, I'm like, well, I mean, we got to pay someone to manage this job because commercial's a whole different, there's all sorts of different rules that I didn't realize at the time until we went through it. I'm like, holy shit, so much is different in commercial from residential.
Right. Very different.
Yeah. So that, and it was well worth it, but there's got to be like for the residential general contractors, there's got to be also that line. It doesn't have to be broken out like that, but there is that line item. Like the small savings in cost isn't going to pay for the GC. Like there is a premium to be paid, isn't there?
I wouldn't say there's a premium. Different GCs work different ways. So that is an example, that commercial example. There are residential general contractors that work that way. They will literally outright say, I'll take 10% of the whole project, and here's all of the quotes from the plumbers, the tapers, the flooring guys, the painters, the carpenters. Select whichever you want, and they'll just manage it. So there are residential contractors that work that way.
That's cost plus, man. Isn't there a name for that?
That's a cost plus.
Cost plus.
Yeah, that's a cost plus. We work on a fixed price. However,
okay,
we work on a fixed price.
No, but you were going to say something about that before I asked you the name of it.
Yeah. So the cost plus, like I said, there's residential contractors that work that way. However, what some clients may know, may not know, may happen, may not happen. Sometimes there is a referral payback that a trade might give a general contractor for selecting them. That back end transaction the clients are not aware of. Mm-hmm. So even though the contractor on paper may appear to be making 10%, they might be making 15 also. So you really don't know that. And there's some of that goes on in the industry as well. It's not everybody, but there are some that do that.
And I guess I'm just thinking about something now, because under that arrangement, there's less incentive for the GC to get it done. And I'm not saying that everyone would do this, but if they don't get it, like if there's budget overruns or it doesn't get done on time, I guess the GC doesn't matter as much, because he's like, well, I mean, but you know, whatever, they came in low. They thought it was going to be 15 grand for whatever work. It's now 25.
Right.
Hey, it is what it is. I'm sorry. And then now they're getting paid on the 25. And if it gets delayed, it doesn't really matter to them because there's no incentive for them to get it done, I guess.
That's right. So they just continue to make money, because there's other GCs that work on, as opposed to a percentage base, they'll work on a monthly fee. So if the project is large enough, like a custom home, might say, you know what, I want $15,000 a month, and here's all the bills from all the trades and so on for a custom home. And as a GC to manage everyone, I want $15,000 a month. Is that going to be 10 months, 12 months, 18 months? In fact, the longer it takes, the more money we make. And that's a risk that the homeowner might want to take or may not want to take. So that's another option of working that some contractors work that way too.
So then, okay, and then you guys do. So you, and then the third way,
another way in the way that we work, which is more risk for us, is we work on a fixed price. However, our fixed price we work on is up to $1 million. So anything north of that in a larger job, we may go to a cost plus model. And the reason we go to a cost plus at that point, it gets too complicated to fix a price on a job that's greater than 7-figure, where we're very confident to fix a price on a job that's under 7-figure, because this is what we do day in, day out for years. So if we go and do a whole house renovation or a main floor or an addition, yes, people say, well, can you foresee different issues? Well, no, we can't foresee, but because we've got so much experience, we know what we may or may not run into. When we work on a century home that's 100 years old in Toronto, that's a lot different than working on a suburban 25-year-old house in Oakville. And why? Well, the construction is way different. It's a double brick house with metal lath and plaster, knob and tube electrical wiring, no insulation, compared to a 25-year-old house in Oakville that has all of that already and is current, or has current drywall. So we know what expectations we might run into just because we've done that type of work, and we are able to successfully put in a fixed price. And
so in that model, though, you're taking on, there's a bit of risk. If things go sideways, there's a bit of risk, but then there's upside to you as well. If things happen to go smoothly, then there's more upside to you.
There might be an upside. So there's a bit of risk for the client in that case too. But at the end of the day, the client has a fixed number, and that number doesn't change.
Yeah.
So if they're comfortable with number, that's what it's going to be. And we stick by that. In fact, not only we stick by that, we also indicate if there's any changes, client-driven changes, then you're on the hook for making that. Now, if there's contractor-driven changes because of something we find when we take things apart and so on the demolition, we eat that on there.
So give me an example, because if you're renovating someone's house and you find something on demolition, how is that contractor-driven change? Wouldn't that ultimately be?
That's more of a site condition. What we treat as a site condition. But I'm saying if we're going to make a change, our plan was to, make this area 8 feet, and we want to now move this wall 9 foot because it's going to contribute to helping with this situation over here. We will suggest do that. Okay. But if it's, we take apart your house and we find, asbestos, or we find lots of mold, or we find
that's not
carpenter ants, those sorts of things, we let the client know, what, you've got a big serious issue. You've got 10,000 carpenter ants here that ate away at a structural beam. and this is what it's going to cost to correct this, fix this, get this rectified. I always tell clients the truth comes out after demolition. That's when we start to uncover and see things. After that, we know how to move forward. So I always tell a client, you know what? Be ready for some contingencies upon demo, again, depending on the age of the house and what the scope of the work is and all of that, what we might find. In a 100-year-old house, the walls are not flat. The floors are not even. There might have been 6 renovations done in the last 100 years over it. We find all sorts of things. There might be tile installed on top of tile, installed on top of tile. We found that 3 layers of tile in a property. So there's some of these surprises that come out after demolition.
Yeah. There was one at my house. I think it was the end of the day. So the guy ended up just taking off. He's like, I don't want to deal with this. I don't know if he didn't want to deal with it at all or that day. And it was in the ceiling. I guess before I had bought the house, there must have been mice in the ceiling at one point because between the plastic barrier and the insulation there was a bunch of mice poop sitting around. And I remember you called me and told me, they're like, oh, no, this guy doesn't want to touch it. It's like, oh, mice crap. I'm like, tell him I'll deal with it. I don't give a damn. So I went and think after work, I don't even think I put a mask on. I'm like, I just grabbed it all, just ripped it out. It just probably went all over me. I didn't even care.
Right.
I have this habit for like, as soon as someone says they're not going to do something, it's this big barrier. I'm like, screw them. I'll show them how it's handled. And then I think you came later and you were just like, you just like shook your head. You're like, all right, well, it's done. Great. Thanks.
There's always a safety concern.
I mean, you got to do things by the book, probably. I get it. Whereas me, I'm like, get out of my way. It's my house. I'll just handle it.
And that's great.
I don't care.
That's great. You took care of that and it's all done.
Yeah. No, I understand. I totally understand.
Yeah.
Hey, quotes. So this gets interesting because one of the things when you talked about changes, and I know the way you do things with changes is, because I think we know each other. I was like, what the hell is Dave doing? Get rid of this damn thing. Because, you sent me a 1-page, here's formally the changes we're making and here's how it changes the project. Please sign off and return this. Right. And I think I wrote back like F you.
Yeah.
It was
an F you signature.
Yeah. But
follow up. No.
But I know why I get why you do it, right? And I'm like, wow, this is actually kind of cool because in the past I've gotten quotes that are very general that scare the crap out of me. And I'm like, well, that quote doesn't really tell me anything. It's like, bathroom renovation, new tub, new toilet, not $15,000 and like whatever, and then, but then I've seen your quote, I've seen other quotes as well, like yours, that are much more detailed. And it's almost amazing to me when I've seen different people's projects, the number of quotes that come back that without kind of that detail. And I'm just, I guess at a minimum, like what should people be looking for when they're doing a project in the quote coming from the contractor? Like what kind of details need to be there to know that they're kind of, it's not going to be a big source of disagreement or argument in the future about what was involved and what wasn't involved.
I think a lot of detail should be in there, and that type of detail, take a bathroom renovation. You may get a quote that says, sure, a tub, toilet, and so on, it's X $1,000. But at the end of the day, really, what kind of toilet? Is it a $100 Home Depot toilet? Is it a $600 toilet? Is it a $1,000 toilet? Is it a $300 bathtub? Is it a deep soaker that's $1,000? Is it acrylic? Is it stone?
Yeah, or one of those volcanic rock ones that are
or
tens of thousands.
A soaking tub. What is it? What are you getting for the money? So to me, it's a useless quote when it just says you're getting a tub, toilet, and a faucet. That doesn't tell me what I'm getting. When you go,
so what do you like to see in there? Like if you're on the client side, what do you like to see? And what do you feel like is, in your opinion, everyone's going to do it differently. Sure. I'm not saying, but in your opinion, like what's like a best practice?
Best practice to me is put the value of the product. So if your project is costing $30,000, great. What do I get for my 30? You get a $500 toilet, a $400 faucet, a $800 tub, $1,000 shower fixture.
So they can still go pick that stuff out, but you assign a value to it.
We put a budgetized value. So for your $30,000, you're getting X, Y, and Z retail product pricing for this.
And then if I go and I find, and you said $1,000 whatever shower fixture,
sure,
and I find one that I like a lot, and I don't care, maybe it's lesser quality, whatever, but it's $500.
Right.
Do then Do you do some contract? I know you can't speak for everyone, but it's like
for us, we'd actually give you back the 500, or we deduct the 500.
And then if I find one that I like that's 1,500,
then we ask you for the additional 500. So basically, we draw a line in the sand for you in order for you to make that determination of what you want to spend. And we've had clients in the past where we've got all these budget allowances per product. They will be under on 90% of them. But on this store-bought vanity, they'll be way over because they know they've saved or were under budget on the other 9 things or 14 things that they want to now spend here. They still want to keep maintain the same budget, but now it's flexible for them on how they want to spend that money. It is no different than having us put a price point of $1 or a budget of $1 for a toilet. We know we're not going to get a toilet for $1. But what we do is we put realistic pricing when speaking to the client. So if a client says, I don't want Home Depot product, which we don't put in at all. I want, not the highest end, but I want middle of the road in the entry level, high end, and this and that. We will put realistic budget values on paper for that, so that their big number is realistic. It's not that it's a $50,000 and it balloons to 100. That to me is not realistic.
What if I tell you I just want to outsource material?
If you want to source your own material, which is great, we typically don't work like that as a contractor, but a lot of contractors.
Why?
Because what happens is if you source something that you think you need, and you may need something else with that you may not be aware of, and when you bring that product in and we're ready to go, you're missing that component.
Creates problems for you,
and then that creates a problem.
But you're saying some other contractors will work that way?
Some will yeah, there's plenty that will work that way, but be mindful, you might run into those problems. So, very simply, you buy a faucet. Some faucets come with a pop-up drain for the sink and a vanity. Some don't. If you don't know that and you don't get that,
and you don't know if you need one,
and then when we need it, you don't have it, and you know what? You're away in Florida and the job's here. Now it's a pause. Can't do this. The plumber has to come back.
2 trips for the plumber.
Now it's another, $250 for the plumber to come out. This is where the costs add up. The job takes longer. The client gets upset. The contractor gets upset. It doesn't work very well. Or a lot of people may not be aware when you buy a tub, typically you need an overflow. We call it waste and overflow, where the overflow drain attaches to the main drain. That's a $150, $200 component people are not aware of.
Yeah, you never think, you just look at the tub.
I just bought a tub, and here's all the stuff. And I think the behavior of a lot of clients say, I'm going to buy my own stuff because the contractor's making money. He's buying it for $5 and selling it to me for $10.
Yeah, I'm sure that's it.
And that's a lot of people think that way.
But so that's not the case?
In some contractors might do that. We don't. We just give, as we mentioned.
I guess you give the line item.
We give the budgetized line item. And this is the value of this product. Now, where it changes for us, so for example, on a simple example, if it's $1,000 shower fixture budget, and you go and select what I call the human car wash, the shower fixture with all the body jets, the plumbing installation price.
Oh God, yeah, okay.
Is accounted for a shower fixture that might have a slide bar and a regular head unit and spout, not a 6 body washes. Now, because you've selected the body wash.
What do people do with that? You just put your arms up and spin around? And
you can do whatever you want. Yeah, it's what I call a human car wash. You just get sprayed from everywhere at the same time. But
it's just got to be from the sides, because if it's from the front or what?
It is on one wall, and we attach unless we.
Oh, it's just on one wall.
It could be on 2 walls, right?
Yeah, you can't have it on 3 because then it shoots against the glass and it just creates a mess. Right?
Depends on the shape of the shower
or the size of the shower.
Or the size of the shower. So, but that now not only have you.
I want the jet. Now I'm thinking, the jets sound like fun.
It could be fun. But
I have one of those rain showers. I should ask if Diana uses it. I don't even know anymore. When we did our master bath years ago now, I'm like, at that time the rain showers were relatively newer. They weren't brand new, but it was like, so we put one in. I swear, early on, I'm like, this is the best. I have this. I used it 3-4 times. I don't think I've turned it on since.
Sometimes it looks cool.
Yeah.
You don't use it. I'm
sure some people really like it. I just never ended up using it.
Right.
But anyways, that's too much information. So,
but yeah, my point is some product selection drives installation prices as well. Not just because there's a budget, but now you may make changes to the labor portion of it too. So that's what we also provide a heads up saying, hey, it's $1,000 shower fixture. but it's not a human car wash. It's a shower fixture.
So have you had to go into jobs? So sorry, to sum this up just on the quotes, it's basically as much detail as possible. And if there's material included, it's a budget line item, in your opinion, to put the budget line item for material, so then people can kind of adjust accordingly one way or the other based on their choice.
And they know what they're getting. In addition to just that breakdown, I also advise look for a payment schedule.
Okay, that was going to be another question, but let's just cover it now. So what is a typical structure people should be looking at that you feels fair to both sides? So, like on a percentage basis, on call it a $50,000 job.
Yeah, on a $50,000 job, there might be 3 to 4 payments broken down by the first payment being 20% or 25%, the next payment being 30 or 35, the third payment being another 35.
So but where do those come in? Because you're asking me, so I haven't worked with you before. You're coming saying, okay, this all looks good. Now give me, what did you say, 25%?
Let's say 20-25%.
So give me 10 to 15, 12 and a half grand, whatever, right?
As a deposit, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just supposed to trust you at that point?
It's tough. And your trust there is based off of a signed contract. So you have a legal document that both parties have signed saying, okay, in exchange for this contract and promissory note of work, here's a $12,000 payment in exchange. And so if the contractor were to run away with that money, you have a signed contract. However, you can follow the legal procedures to try to get that back, and it becomes challenging. You might probably been awarded, but again, it becomes challenging. It's a challenge. So and at some point, the contractor feels the same way. Do I trust the client's going to pay?
That's fair, because I remember
it works
with
both
our
ways.
dad, and this wasn't even on like a single residential job renovation. These were on, with corporations building 20-story condo buildings. And it was him having to be like, hey, no, we need payments. And I remember him on the phone. He would come home all ticked off and stuff like that. He'd be on the phone at night talking to his business partner. They're trying to figure out, well, we need payment. They always were chasing money.
Right.
And I remember him telling me as a kid, he goes, whatever you do, he goes, whatever business you're in, he goes, try to just make sure you're not in one where you're chasing money. And I don't know how they, these were two kind of Croatian immigrants starting this drywall business. I'm sure they weren't looking at all the legal sides of things, and it wasn't structured probably the best way it could have been with certain things, to be fair.
Right.
But it just always stuck out in my head, and it's why for me, I've never wanted to owe contractors money. Like any contractor that I work with, they will always say, not a single one, that if they do the job that's, they said they were going to do, not a single one has ever had to ask for money twice. Like there's ones sometimes that I'm like, I owed money to for a month because I just forgot. Mm-hmm. And then I call them oh my God, I just realized I didn't pay. I'm so sorry. They're like, no problem. I knew you were good for it. It's no problem. Like they just knew it was coming, but I felt bad because I think growing up in that household, I just have this kind of it's ingrained in me now in the back of my head. I remember that I don't want other people to have to go through that because I saw the stress that it caused on my father.
Yeah, and it can be stressful. And again, this comes even down, going back to our earlier discussion of selecting the right contractor who might be a business, who might have a positive cash flow, who might be able to not need the funds right away,
absorb it,
and depend on those funds right away, and they absorb it for a week or two or so on. So it goes back to that.
How often so 2 questions. One, I'm just going to say them now, but I want to come back to the payment. The payment is, the question is, at what point you're saying the next payment is 25% or 35%, so that's going to bring me up to 40-50% payment.
Right.
How far along should the job be before it's reasonable for me to pay that much? And then then also on this note, when a contractor starts, sometimes they're pulled in different directions. They have to go to different jobs, but how often should that contractor be on site doing work once the job starts?
Yeah. So to the first question, the payment schedule, there's two ways the payment schedule could be structured. One is through milestones, after demolition, after painting, after drywall, or on a schedule base after 2 weeks, after 4 weeks. If it's after a time base, such as 2 weeks or 4 weeks, that only works if the contractor's there every day and it's on schedule. Otherwise, the client ends up prepaying if they're taking longer. Milestones are guaranteed. If the drywall was expected to be done on week 2, but it's done on week 3, the payment's due on week 3 instead of week 2. So that's more of a guarantee. And we structure our payment schedules both ways. So it depends on what the client prefers. we have a strong push to stay on schedule, and we maintain our schedules. And that's why I'm not.
So you'll give it, like, so if you're doing a bathroom, it'll be like, give us the deposit, and then, then after the whatever's next, because the tile would come later. Let's say after the plumbing work's done or something like
we
that.
Need another deposit, another payment, and the third payment 2 weeks after that, and so on. And that's broken down up front. So that's all transparent before the client signs. They see that, agree to it, and we follow suit.
I know you don't have insight into this, but what percentage of contractors, because it is very detail oriented. I've seen your stuff because I've worked with you. So, and I've worked with other contractors and I haven't seen that level of detail. And some I have, and again, the commercial example, but what percentage of them are kind of doing it that way on the residential side and the kind of the market you play in, you think? I know you don't know, but if you had to get, is it like 50-50, you think? Is it?
That provide an actual payment schedule? I think a lot of them will provide a payment schedule. Whether they stick to the schedule is a whole different story. I couldn't even hazard a guess. I'm not actually.
Okay.
I wouldn't be sure, to be honest, how many have that. But payment schedule should be written in the contract.
Okay. And then what about have you had to go into jobs that were started with other contractors
that have been fired and let go?
Yeah,
we have.
And so and I'm sure like a lot, it's not just you. Lots of contractors have. That's I mean, like I said, I know it's a story from, I think it was earlier this week actually, that happened when someone else had to step in. So, but what, like, is there a common theme? Like, is it did they get into a disagreement? Does the person just disappear? Like, what have you kind of seen that have been the reasons why you've kind of had to step into those situations?
To me, it's the quality of contractor, and that is coming.
So the quality of the finished product?
No, the quality of the individual, the person in the company.
So you mean that they're just disappearing?
That they're a bad contractor, disorganized, and that kind of stems from the client selecting that individual and not doing their due diligence on who they are and their work and so on. Maybe that guy was working across the street at their neighbor's place, and the neighbor says, you know what, for me, he was great. And they took that word and hired him without doing any other investigative.
Yeah, because you hear that a lot. Like, not check references, but like get referrals.
Get referrals. And so, you know what, my neighbor says he's good. But in my opinion, not good enough. Still do your due diligence. Still do your own due diligence, because you know what, what's good for them may not be good for me. And I've seen that. And yeah, we have come in after a contractor's been fired, but we actually decline a lot of those jobs and projects. We'll only take them on if that happens in the infancy, in the early stages. I will not go and finish a job after drywall.
Because you don't want to be responsible for what's there?
I don't know what plumbing or electrical work is behind the walls, what was done. And if we start to put tile and we finish and we paint and things don't work, that gets discovered upon finishing, then we have another problem.
I didn't think about that, because then who's going to pay to rip that stuff out and redo it again?
Right, whose responsibility is, and so on. So we just walk away from those jobs to say, we want to help you, and if we do, this is how we're going to do it. We're going to actually take apart that work.
Yeah, check everything.
We're going to check everything ourselves. Unfortunately, it's going to cost you now double or triple the money for those portions. But if you want us to do the work, that's what we need to do. Otherwise, we actually don't want to take them.
Are people receptive to that message, or at that point they're already pissed off about the whole experience? So they're like,
they are pissed off, but it's an educational piece, because now they pause and think a bit, because you know what? They may have acted quickly, irrationally, unprepared by hiring contractor X and got burned. Now they want to look for somebody more reputable. And that's the type of phone call we get sometimes where, oh, we found you guys and you seem reputable and blah, 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 blah. Well, let's hire you guys. So why didn't you do that in the beginning? Because now you wanted to save some money by hiring someone from Kijiji or whatever. You know what? It didn't work out. Now it's going to cost you even more. And that's a learning lesson. And so it is what it is.
You just don't know, man. And it comes down to cost. And sometimes there's a big difference. And if you don't know, and look, sometimes there's going to be a difference in cost. And I'm sure like there's some other people, there's going to be some jobs that you or anyone else bids higher on than some other very good contractor, because for whatever reason, maybe there's a time that they need to keep their guys busy.
Right.
Maybe the numbers just come in wrong for one person, they get it wrong versus the other person. Like, who knows, right?
There are those scenarios.
And they're going to get good results. And then there's the opposite too.
Yes. And those are, to me, those are small situations, or there wouldn't be that many in that kind of scenario. There's probably more in the other scenario. if you were to compare the two scenarios.
Yeah, sure.
But yeah, cost is always a factor.
Everyone has to, everyone goes down and it gets attractive. You're like, wow, I can save some money here. And then you start kind of, deciding, do I trust this person enough or whatever?
Right. The other bit is, what is that scope of work? Is it a necessity? Or is it, it's dated. I just want to change things. I want things to look nicer and newer. Or, my shower is leaking. I need a new shower. I need a new shower. It's falling apart. There's a difference too.
If you're getting someone to lipstick a room, to put some new flooring down and put some paint, it's different than, hey, let's rip open the walls and start getting into mechanicals of things.
If it's a necessity, they may not be financially ready because something's occurred. They need to my car broke down. I got into an accident. I got to buy a new car. Or, we've been saving for a year because we've been planning on doing the main floor or our new kitchen. And I'm prepared now and I'm ready now to spend X.
Yeah.
And so that also is another variable that it depends on what's the reason for the renovation.
That's fair.
Or I'm selling my house in 3 months. I just make it new for resale.
Yeah.
So again, it depends on the motive.
Where are material costs right now? Are material costs are they kind of leveled off? Are they still high? Because
if you're asking compared to COVID times and pre-COVID times, during early COVID, material costs have rose quite a bit. Lumber, insulation, etc. Plumbing components and so on.
I know lumber came back down a bit.
Yeah, so lumber did come down. Insulation did not. So lumber is still more expensive than it was pre-COVID, but not much more.
What about labor now?
Labor has slowly creeped up since COVID, not significant.
So and it hasn't come down as things have slowed this year. Labor has not come down.
I think now in Q4 and into Q1 next year. Yeah.
But
construction
sounds like
marginally, but labor prices have come down a little bit because this is a slower time now, despite interest rate drops, et cetera. Construction now is probably at its slowest point since it's been in the last 6 years, I'd say.
We're hearing that some skilled trades, more on kind of new construction job sites, because there's less, obviously there's far less new construction being built.
Right.
I shouldn't say there's far less. There's a lot that are still under construction. The starts have really kind of dissipated, right? But as the completions come on and there's no new projects for these people to go to, a lot of the skilled labor is starting to leave. Again, I shouldn't say a lot, but there is some skilled labor that's starting to leave the area to go to job sites where they're building. And we're hearing East Coast and Alberta that are taking some of that skilled labor. Have you seen any of the trades you're working with kind of move on to other things at all, or not so much? It hasn't reached that point yet.
Yeah, not so much for our trade base. However, we have received calls from other trades, new trades on subdivisions and larger developments looking for work.
Oh, really?
We have seen, and I usually do get that during slower economic times. I've seen a trend now, being in the business long enough. I've seen that in 2009. I've seen that in 2017. I'm seeing it again this past Q3, Q4, where my phone is ringing from other trades looking for work. And those are signs, again, that things are slower out there.
What a shift! It was just a couple of years ago that you were begging people to come out.
Right.
I'm not saying you. I'm saying everyone.
Yes.
You were begging. Oh my God! The contractor said he can make it today. Move my life. Change everything. My kids, leave them at the side of the street. I got to get home to meet the contractor.
Right. He's got someone showing up.
Yeah.
It's been a big change. We've had one of our drywall trades for the first time in 25 years indicated to me, Dave, you name your price and I'll come work. I've never had nothing on my calendar 3 weeks from now. That's never been the case. And I have nothing on my calendar 3 weeks from now.
Wow.
Big shift.
So they got to keep because they're either now they're either letting guys go or they got to keep the guys busy.
It's a problem, right? Yeah, they got to keep the guys busy. People have to eat. They have bills to pay. If there isn't any work, they leave. They, maybe change industries. During COVID, with all the restaurants closing down and so on, I got a couple phone calls from two different sous chefs looking to be laborers in construction, because construction was busy.
Yeah.
So people shift industries. If they've got bills to pay, they need to figure out how to make money and how to work.
What? Give me an example of some, because I like some of the stories that you share about like ridiculous things that people do, like the $15,000, or did you say $18,000 toilet?
I think somewhere
15,
around
16,
there. Yeah,
whatever. The toilet's always a good one. What else? Anything else kind of stand out at, like, just kind of, I shouldn't say unnecessary. Whatever people choose to do for themselves, good for them. Whatever makes them happy, you know. But the things that maybe are more rare that you see. Yeah,
we've come across, from hidden rooms.
That just seems cool.
Yeah,
having a security, like, is it like biometrics to get it unlocked?
We haven't done the biometrics,
so it's just keypad.
Keypad or literally manual. Hidden kitchens.
Hidden kitchen.
So in some high-end homes, you have the main kitchen, the display kitchen, the kitchen with the high-end appliances and millwork, but doesn't really get used. And the working kitchen is behind the main kitchen, but it is through a pantry that you may think is a pantry, but really it's a door and entranceway to the working kitchen that is messy and is constantly being used and worked on.
Gosh. When in that listing that I was telling you about earlier today, that because there's that $20 million listing that I was talking about, there was that, they had like the second, it was just like a one linear, like one stretch of linear
galley kitchen or
yeah. And I just assumed it was for caterers when they were there. But now that you're saying that could be almost like a regular thing, because in that type of property, because there was upstairs too, you could see where the upstairs was divided. There was doors, but it was very clearly there was a separate laundry room. There was a separate bedroom with like a separate area, which was behind a door, but it had a bedroom, living area, and bathroom. I'm like, oh my god, this is for like the hell, like whatever, maid, butler, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And then now you're saying that they could use that kitchen, because the stairs went down from that area right to that second kitchen area
as a service.
So they would have the real kitchen, but then that kitchen would be the servants' kitchen that would be used all the time.
Yeah, and that's by design.
Oh, I never even thought about that.
Some higher end homes want that. And then we have kosher kitchens and non-kosher kitchens. So sometimes there's multiple kitchens in a home, but in the high end, there's often a display kitchen that it's a kitchen for the house, but really doesn't get used all that much.
Some of those condos, you said you were doing some of the high-end condos and stuff. That must be a pain in the butt. Getting in and out of the condo, material, going there, like especially if you were. Did you say it was down like Yorkville area too?
Yeah, we've done a lot of work downtown condos, and everyone knows getting downtown, getting out of downtown, getting into downtown is not fun at all at any time of the day. Especially with all the events and sports and so on, and traffic and construction. So most contractors don't want to work downtown, don't want to do condos. I don't mind them at all. We do charge accordingly, but in an 8-hour workday.
That's what I was going to ask, because
we have to, because it's not that we charge extra. It's the fact that it's going to take longer, and the reason it's going to take longer in an 8-hour workday. The trade that might take 60, 90 minutes to get there, find parking, pay for parking, get up an elevator, and actually start their day, and vice versa. At the end of the day, they might be 5 hours productive, 4 hours productive in an 8-hour day. And so that costs more because there's more travel time, park time, there's more time wasted in there. And then, working within condos, there's condo rules, and every condo has a different set of rules to follow. So contractors need to be cognizant of those. They need to have the right insurances, because there's submissions that we need to give into the property management office in a condo or the condo board. So for that reason, there's a lot of contractors that don't like working in condos, where we don't mind at all. We've done a lot of condos.
What else did I ask that people have to kind of like, we covered some stuff on the quotes and payment schedule, some things to look for insurances, check how to check people out for not just referrals, but maybe
references,
real references, past work. Yeah. Is there anything kind of that like is outstanding that comes to mind as like a big thing that's like, oh yeah, they should also kind of look at this? I feel like we've touched on the big ones. So I don't know if I'm missing something from what you've seen.
I think those are the big ones. Another big one would be, do they have an office and home base and support, or is it just a guy?
Yeah.
If they have back-end support and an office and so on, they're grounded, they have a location, you can go and see them. I think that's pretty important. Obviously, they have overhead. Overhead costs money. They might be more expensive than the guy in the truck, but ultimately, I believe you get what you pay for most of the time. So how
much can pricing vary from like GC, like general contractors that, like is it normally if you get 3 quotes that they're probably going to be within 10% of each other? Is it
they should be within 10%, but sometimes we've gotten feedback it's within 40-50%.
Yeah, so
but some of the ones that are 40% lower, the level of detail is not there.
Yeah, I got a quote one time. This was for my backyard. The person that came in and did it, it was for just some stonework. It was a young kid. I think it was like a summer job for them, and their number was quite low. And I was like, I knew, I was like, that number's not right. And what kind of problems is it going to be after? Like, I'll be like, I could just be like, oh yeah, let's just do it. Like, yeah, sure. But I just knew it was probably going to lead to some issues afterwards. Yeah, and it felt like it'll.
Right, and that's you asking for a fixed price for the back. Yeah. And a lot of contractors actually don't know how to price or can't price a fixed price. They just can't fathom that. They can't understand how to get from A to Z.
But don't they all do it for small jobs? No, because smaller jobs you're not going to do like a cost plus, are you?
No, you may. It all depends. Someone may say, I just want a daily labor rate and whatever it costs, because they can't figure out if is this a $10,000 masonry or landscape job? Because I don't know. Is it going to take me 1 week, 3 weeks, or 5 weeks?
Yeah.
I don't know. So they're not experienced enough to determine that and give you a fixed price. So that's another challenge for a lot of people, especially as the job gets much bigger. When it's in the hundreds of thousands, there's a lot of contractors that cannot price that.
There's just too many moving parts.
For them, it's too many moving parts. Where, like I said, we can price up to 7-figure at a fixed price, and then we take it a different way from there. But that's just a lot of experience.
And beyond, because it looks like you're going to be moving into some custom home stuff.
Yeah.
Like full home is what I mean too.
Yeah,
right?
So we do that. We, a little bit of commercial and office outfits and retail and so on. So, yeah.
Yeah. Cool, man. Look, I appreciate you sharing this. Like I said, we get questions all the time. And I think as more opportunities have come up for investors that specifically involve a little bit more work than maybe some past ones, meaning like especially adding the additional units. And I'm just talking about the secondary suites and properties, not even like, exterior accessory dwelling units.
Right.
It's just becoming a more and more important part of the investor toolkit and kind of the pathway to, and even if you don't do it to add a unit, if you have a property over any period of time, work's going to need to be done. It's inevitable, right?
The work needs to be done, maintenance needs to be done, repairs need to be done, or there's another opportunity. If the city now is allowing garden suites and lane houses, and they're more lenient on allowing these types of enhancements, the calls will be coming in for somebody that might have a bigger lot, or the investor's looking for a property that might have a bit of a wider lot to allow for that, and have an opportunity for more disposable income on the side on spending that and deciding to go with that project. So the nice thing is, I am a landlord, I am a property manager, I am a project manager, we are a contractor, was a real estate agent. So
that's right, I forgot about that. Yeah. In your Hummer, you were one of those real estate agents, big sunglasses, and one of those Hummers. What was the H2 at that time when it was out? H3, driving around like a shooter. Oh yeah, I remember those days now.
So I'm very familiar with and finance and credit and so on. So very unique situation to have a contractor who's got experience and knowledge in all of those different disciplines and facets that all surround real estate, construction, investing, renting, flipping, credit, creative financing, etc. So it's kind of nice for some people that works out.
Yeah,
not just
because see both sides. It's like when you're sending someone in, we have certain like handymen that we work with for different properties. And it's like when you send someone in, you want to know that if they're going to talk to the tenants, first they're going to be talk to them nice and respectfully.
Right.
Secondly, that they're not going to look at something and totally blow it out of proportion like some people have done, and the tenants go into a frenzy and we're like, hold on, this isn't really a big deal, but they're all freaked out because of the way someone communicated something. So yeah, when you understand multiple sides of the project, it makes a difference. But there's a more important question. This is probably the most important question I'm going to ask you. This is actually essential, Dave. This is a test. Have you ever seen someone swing a sledgehammer better than me? That's what I want to know.
I have to think.
In all your experience now, Is it possible?
I got to think about this for about half a second. So no,
Yeah,
I have not seen.
That's good. That's more important. That's the most important thing, especially if I had 1 or 2 beers at lunch while we were working on that house, and then you gave me the sledgehammer. Then it got really fun.
That was a workout and fun and productive.
Oh man, I remember being in that basement. I don't know why this night in particular. I think it was a weeknight. We went down. And we were doing the ventilation in that basement. We were running all the vents. The Leaf game. There was a Leaf game while we were listening to a Leaf game in the basement. I remember being on a ladder, listening to the Leaf game, and taping one of the seams in one of the vents that we were putting up.
Right.
And just talking to you. And I don't know why that particular time sticks out when we were renovating that house together. It was there was a lot of lessons there, man. It was hilarious, some of the things that went on there. Remember Tom came that one time to help us dig out one side of the, because we did one, so
yes.
We did one side and then we ended up having to do the other side, but he came for the first side that we had to dig out.
Yes.
And he had been out, I don't know, doing what the night before, but he was like, hadn't slept. I think he had a few drinks. He was wrecked. And he only lasted like 90 minutes before he's like, I gotta go, man. I don't think I can handle this. While we were digging that thing out, and me, you, and Eddie, I think, with the little kind of hand digger that we're going, like, it was just a disaster. We did the roof there. We did electrical.
We did everything. We did the whole house.
We still have that place.
Yes, we do.
Do you remember how much we paid for it?
I believe it was 111,000 or 110,000.
Was it? I was going to say 128 or something.
Or 127.
127.
126.5. Sorry, I think it was 120.
Was it something like that?
I think we offered 110, and we ended up at
maybe that. You might be right. You might be right. Yeah. So but just to look, I know that price is outrageous to anyone listening today for the price of. I get it, but it was outrageous even at that time. It was a power of sale, and it was a
deal.
dump, right?
Yes.
So, but. Cool, man. For anyone that wants to kind of reach out to you, if they're doing something that kind of might fit your scope of work or whatever they're up to.
Yeah.
What is it? Website? What's the best?
Yeah. So it's torontocustomconcepts.com. That's the website. Email would be info@torontocustomconcepts.com. And again, if you Google us, there's multiple websites that we come up on, and certainly just click on a link, and you can certainly send us and reach out, send us a line. And phone number 416-806-2232 as well. So we can be reached anytime.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate you coming in.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you, Nick.